War leaves behind more than just ruins. Sometimes, it leaves secrets buried in the shadows, whispers of events so strange and terrifying that they become legends. But what if some of those legends weren't just stories? What if they were true? This is one such tale. The disappearance of the Cursed Battalion. In the bitter winter of 1943, a Soviet battalion, nearly 500 soldiers strong, was sent to reclaim a village deep within the snow-covered forests of Belarus. The Nazis had abandoned the area days before, retreating further west. The mission should have been simple. But when a second unit arrived 2 days later to reinforce them, they found something horrifying. The village was there. Their supplies, their vehicles, all untouched. But the soldiers were gone. Every single one of them had vanished. No bodies. No blood. No signs of struggle. It was as if 500 men had been erased from existence overnight. The diary of Lieutenant Mikhailov. 4 years, the disappearance remained a mystery, until 1959, when a classified Soviet military diary was leaked. It belonged to Lieutenant Sergei Mikhailov, one of the battalion leaders. His final entry, written the night before the unit disappeared, revealed something chilling. The woods feel wrong. We hear whispers at night, but no one is there. Our radios pick up voices that aren't ours, murmuring in languages we don't understand. Private Vasily saw something outside his tent. A figure standing in the snow, staring at him. It had no face. Only darkness. We are not alone here. That was the last anyone ever heard from them. A horrific discovery in 1978. Hikers stumbled upon something deep in those same forests. A mass grave. Hundreds of skeletons, still wearing tattered Soviet uniforms. But there was something wrong. Some of the bones had been gnawed on, but not by animals. By human teeth. To this day, no one knows what truly happened to the battalion. Some say they went mad and turned on each other. Others believe something hunted them. But one thing is certain. They never left the forest. To be continued. Even decades after the war, the mystery of the vanished battalion remained a terrifying enigma. The Soviet government sealed the records, dismissing the event as anomalous battlefield circumstances. But the locals, they knew better. A signal from the dead. In 1993, a group of amateur radio enthusiasts were scanning old wartime frequencies near the Belarusian forest. Most of what they heard was static. But at 2:13 a.m., their equipment picked up something unusual. A weak, crackling transmission, buried beneath the noise. A voice, hoarse, frantic, speaking in Russian. "We are surrounded. Shadows moving. No escape." Then, nothing. The signal vanished as quickly as it had appeared. Experts traced the frequency back to a location, the same forest where the battalion had disappeared. But that was impossible. There hadn't been a radio station there in over 50 years. Strange encounters in the woods. Even today, hikers and locals report unnerving encounters in that forest. Unexplained footprints appearing in the snow, barefoot and leading nowhere. A strange, metallic smell in the air, like blood and rust. Voices echoing through the trees, whispering in Russian and German, though no one is there. In 2011, a documentary crew entered the area to investigate. Only 2 of the 5 members returned. They refused to speak about what happened. One of them, trembling, could only say, "They are still there. But they're not human anymore." A final warning: legends say those who venture too deep into the cursed woods never come back the same. Or worse, they don't come back at all. To this day, the battalion remains missing. Or maybe, they're still waiting in the trees. 1944, the North Atlantic. A German U-boat, U-666, was on a secret mission. Its orders: disrupt Allied supply lines and vanish without a trace. For weeks, the vessel prowled beneath the waves, avoiding detection. But then, something went horribly wrong. A distress signal, brief, panicked, was intercepted by a nearby German naval base. Taking on water. Crew is seeing things. Hull breach near. The transmission cut off abruptly. The U-boat was never seen again. The unbelievable discovery. Fast forward to 1987. A Soviet research team using deep-sea sonar detected an intact WW2 era U-boat resting at the bottom of the North Atlantic. Its identification number? U-666. A diving team was sent down to investigate. The submarine was perfectly preserved, its hull untouched by time. But when they forced open the hatch, they found the crew, still seated at their stations, still dressed in their decayed uniforms, their faces frozen in expressions of horror. And yet, their bodies showed no signs of decomposition. It was as if they had died yesterday. The haunting of U-666. What happened next is still classified, but rumors leaked from the divers who entered the submarine. The radio clicked on by itself, broadcasting a German distress call from 1944. One diver swore he saw a crew member's eyes move, before the body let out a strangled breath. The sound of footsteps echoed through the flooded corridors, even though no one was inside. Terrified, the team sealed the hatch and abandoned the wreck. When they checked their equipment later, half their recordings were missing. The ones that remained were filled with whispered German voices. A cursed vessel to this day, U-666 remains exactly where it was found. No country has dared recover it. Because every time a submarine or ship passes over the wreck, strange radio signals are picked up, and some sailors swear they hear voices, calling for help, from a crew that has been dead for over 80 years. 1940, the Battle of Dunkirk. As Allied forces retreated from the advancing German army, one British battalion never made it to the beach. The Royal Norfolk Regiment, stationed in a wooded area just outside Dunkirk, was tasked with delaying the German advance to buy time for evacuation. They were 99 men strong. But when reinforcements arrived the next morning, the entire battalion was gone. The mysterious disappearance, their weapons were left behind. Their supplies remained untouched. There were no bodies, no signs of struggle, nothing. It was as if the entire unit had walked off the face of the earth. At first, the British command assumed they had been captured, but no German records ever mentioned the battalion. No prisoners. No executions. It was as if they had never existed. The ghostly sightings for years after the war, locals and soldiers stationed near the area reported eerie encounters. 1944, a group of British soldiers setting up camp heard voices in the woods, whispering orders in old military code. 1956, a French farmer claimed to see a group of pale, uniformed men marching through the trees, only to vanish into thin air. 1977, a team of historians exploring the site picked up a faint radio signal, a British soldier's voice, repeating, "We are still here, we are still here." The unearthed mass grave. In 2009, an excavation team searching for WW2 artifacts made a disturbing discovery. A mass grave. The bodies belonged to British soldiers, still wearing Royal Norfolk Regiment insignia. But here's where it gets horrifying. Forensic analysis revealed that these men had been buried alive. There were scratch marks on the wooden coffin walls, as if they had tried desperately to escape. But even more chilling, the soil above the grave had never been disturbed. No signs of digging. No signs that the grave had ever been opened. As if they had simply sunk into the earth. A battlefield cursed by the past to this day. Strange lights are seen in the woods near Dunkirk. Some claim they are ghostly lanterns carried by the lost battalion. Others say that on quiet nights, you can still hear them, marching through the trees, waiting to be found. 1943, a secret Nazi bunker deep in the Black Forest. A team of German officers and scientists conducted a classified experiment. No records, no reports. Only one thing survived. A single, decayed film reel. The discovery in 1992, a group of explorers stumbled upon the remains of a hidden WW2 bunker in Germany. The entrance was sealed, the structure half buried under decades of dirt and moss. Inside, they found rusted weapons, shattered glass vials, and something far more disturbing. A locked metal case. Inside, a film reel sat untouched, preserved by time. The only markings on it? A faded Nazi insignia. And the words, "Nicht anstören," do not watch. The disturbing footage curiosity got the best of them. They took the film to an expert, who carefully restored it and played it on an old projector. The footage was silent, grainy, and eerie. It began with a group of Nazi officers in a dimly lit bunker, standing around a massive iron door. They were smiling, laughing, almost nervous. Then, the door began to shake. Hard. Something escaped. The officers stepped back. The camera operator stayed in place, the frame trembling as the door bulged outward, as if something was pushing from the other side. Then, the metal tore apart like paper. And then, in the chaos, the frame went black. When the footage resumed, the bunker was empty. The camera was now filming the hallway, swaying as if someone was carrying it. But there were no footsteps. No shadows. Just the sound of ragged breathing. And then, a single frame, so quick it almost went unnoticed. A distorted face. Hollow eyes, its mouth frozen mid-scream. Its skin was grey, almost translucent. And then, the film cut off. The vanishing projectionist, the expert who played the film, never spoke about what he saw. Days later, he disappeared. His workshop was found abandoned, the film reel missing. The only clue left behind? His old projector was still running, looping the last frame of the film. That horrifying face, staring into the darkness, as if it was watching back. 1944, the Eastern Front. A brutal winter. German supply convoys struggled against the biting cold and relentless Soviet attacks. But one convoy, a column of 6 trucks, never made it to its destination. And yet, soldiers kept seeing them. The disappearance in January 1944. A convoy left *** a remote German outpost in Poland, carrying weapons, supplies, and, according to some rumors, classified Nazi experiments. The convoy's last radio transmission was normal. Entering the forest now. We should reach base by morning. But they never arrived. The next day, a search team found no wreckage, no bodies, only tire tracks leading into the woods, and stopping abruptly. It was as if the trucks had vanished into thin air. The sightings begin months later. Soviet soldiers stationed near that same road began reporting strange incidents. At night, they heard engines rumbling in the distance. Then, headlights would appear between the trees. A full convoy, moving in complete silence. Soviet scouts tried setting up roadblocks, but the trucks never stopped. They simply drove forward, phasing through obstacles like mist. The soldiers who stood in their path? They collapsed, screaming, as if something invisible had passed straight through them, freezing their insides. The last attempt terrified, Soviet commanders ordered artillery fire on the convoy. When the shells hit, the trucks exploded into nothing. No wreckage, no fire, just empty road. And the next night, the headlights returned, still moving, still silent, and still searching for their final destination. 1943, the Atlantic Ocean. The German U-boat U-479 was one of the Kriegsmarine's most feared submarines. But by late 1943, something changed. The crew began reporting whispers in the engine room. Tools disappeared, only to be found in impossible places. And then, the accidents began. The descent into madness sailors were found standing in the dark, mumbling to themselves. One night, the radio operator clawed out his own eyes, screaming, "It's watching from the vents. It sees everything." He died before anyone could understand what he meant. The captain, fearing sabotage, ordered a full inspection. They found nothing, except a journal from a previous crew member. Its final entry: "We should have never entered these waters. Something is down here with us." The last dive. On November 14, 1943, U-479 was ordered to patrol the Norwegian coast. It submerged one final time, and was never heard from again. Months later, a British warship detected a faint distress signal, from deep underwater. The message repeated for over an hour. Still alive. Still trapped. Help us. But there was no U-boat left to rescue. When divers explored the wreck decades later, they found something chilling. The escape hatches were open. Yet no bodies were ever recovered. It was as if the crew had walked out into the crushing deep, willingly. And some say, if you listen carefully near the wreck site, you can still hear them knocking. 1945. The Ardennes Forest. As the war neared its end, soldiers on both sides whispered about a battalion that wouldn't die. It started with a group of American scouts deep in the forest. They saw movement, a column of German soldiers, marching in perfect formation. Oddly, the scouts reported, they made no sound. No crunching of snow. No rustling of gear. And when one scout aimed his rifle, the figures vanished into thin air. The unkillable enemy. Over the next few weeks, both American and German troops reported the same thing. At night, figures in tattered German uniforms appeared on the battlefield. Soldiers fired at them, direct hits, yet they didn't fall. Instead, they kept advancing, their hollow eyes fixed forward. One captured German officer, shaking in fear, confessed, "We shot them. We buried them." And the next night, they returned, marching like they had never died. The final encounter. Determined to put an end to the terror, a group of Allied soldiers set up an ambush. The figures came again, emerging from the mist. The soldiers opened fire, but their bullets passed straight through. Then, the air turned deathly cold. A radio operator screamed, "They're inside the trenches. They are here." But when his commanding officer turned, the radio operator was alone. And the next morning, the entire ambush team was gone. No bodies. No tracks. Only their weapons, neatly placed in a pile. As if someone, or something, had collected them. To this day, veterans refuse to discuss the Ghost Battalion. And soldiers stationed in the Ardennes still report the same chilling sight. A line of figures, standing silently at the forest's edge. Watching. Waiting. And marching toward battle once more.